Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Seems to be an echo here. Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Grant Miller. I'm the country manager for Zero, and I'm also the chairperson for the Namibian Green Hydrogen Association. It is my distinct honor this afternoon to open this session and also direct the ceremonies for this afternoon. With its world-class solar and wind resources, abundant land, and stable governance, and its ambitious population, Namibia has all the ingredients to establish a globally competitive, large-scale green hydrogen sector and associated green industries. Admittedly, the global uptake for green hydrogen has been slower than many have anticipated, but its strategic role in decarbonizing the hard-to-abate sectors remains relevant. And with the recent events in the Middle East, its role in the energy security is becoming increasingly more important. Notably, the slower market uptake has increased the level of competition amongst producer countries to be the first to market. The countries that are first to market will be able to accelerate the establishment of the green hydrogen sector and green industries and will command a material competitive advantage over countries that will follow. It is these first mover countries which will also enjoy the early socio-economic development impacts associated with the establishment of these large-scale projects. For decades now, Namibia has been recognized for its natural resources, diamonds, uranium, fisheries, and vast open landscapes. But the story we are writing today is fundamentally different. Namibia is positioning itself as one of Africa's emerging energy hubs with a focus on green hydrogen and green industrialization, supported by the government's strategic position under SWAPO Manifesto Implementation Plan, Namibia National Development Plan 6 and Vision 2030. So although Namibia's renewable endowment gives us a competitive advantage in terms of the green hydrogen and green industrialization agenda, what really matters is converting that natural advantage into a bankable and tangible green hydrogen project and green industries. This suggests that the enabling environment at home must continue to strengthen. Investors need alignment on local employment expectations, support in permitting processes, and clarity and dispensation on revenue and tax frameworks. These are not obstacles, but rather pathways for Namibia to build a world-class investment environment that supports long-term industrial growth. For the EU, partnering with Namibia means a strategic advantage in energy diversification as well as decarbonization. This is why international diplomacy and structured dialogue between Namibia and the EU at events like this is essential. Large-scale green hydrogen projects cannot advance without government-level support, aligned policies, and predictable market signals. As we open this thematic session for the EU-Namibia Business Forum, let us move from high-level commitment to establishing a practical roadmap that converts interest into bankable projects, strengthening. Let us move from high-level commitment to establishing a practical roadmap that converts interest into bankable projects. Sorry, there seems to be some feedback. Okay. Let me try again. As we open this thematic session of the EU-Namibia Business Forum, let us move from the high-level commitment to establishing a practical roadmap that converts interest into bankable projects, strengthening relations with Europe, and delivering on the socio-economic imperatives for Namibia. Ladies and gentlemen, Namibia is ready. We're not just imagining a green future, we're building it with clarity, with purpose, and with partners who share ambition. So with that, I thank you. So as Director of Ceremonies for this afternoon, I'd like to call on our first presentation, which is the role of CFDs and market de-risking instruments and how they enhance revenue certainty, bankability, and unlock investments. It's by Mr. Gregor Patterson-Jones, who is a finance catalyst at Get Invest. He is a climate finance, infrastructure, and blended finance specialist with extensive experience across Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. He was previously the managing director at the UK Green Investment Bank and chief investment officer for the establishment of the Saudi Arabia's National Infrastructure Fund. He has advised governments, DFIs, development banks, and funds on green infrastructure guarantees, concessional finance, investment platforms, and climate-related mobilization. His current work focuses on bankable climate infrastructure and the financing structure needed to scale green industrial projects. Please, would you extend a hand to Mr. Gregor Patterson-Jones? Thank you.
And I hope everyone can hear me okay. If someone can just confirm that is the case. So in the absence of confirmation, I will start. So I have had the privilege of financing as the Chief Investment Officer of the Saudi Sovereign Infrastructure Fund, one of the only project-financed large-scale hydrogen projects to date. And the learnings from such a difficult transaction have fed into this process. I'm currently an advisor at Get Invest Finance Catalyst, and through our engagement with the market and the analysis we've done, we have proposed that the most appropriate mechanism to support hydrogen in the current market at scale for delivery into the European market is an instrument called the Contract for Difference. So what are contracts for difference? First of all, you've got to look at the context. Europe needs a very high volume of hydrogen to meet its mandated supply. And at this stage, it is radically underperforming in terms of the ability to secure that level of hydrogen into the European market. And the real reason is that there aren't scale projects internationally that can supply this green hydrogen to the market. And the major reason is cost and certainty. Now, the current production cost of green hydrogen exceeds that of grey hydrogen plus the pollution penalties. And in order for that to change, one has to start funding very, very large projects internationally. And scale is important to scale not just the production, but also the value chains, port handling, conversion assets, and so forth. And for the price to go down, you need big volumes because that reduces the capex. And for big volumes, you need certainty because that brings in the financiers. And for certainty at a cost of production, which is currently but won't always be higher than grey hydrogen, you need some sort of support. And so it's not okay to do small pilots. In order to get the costs down, you have to do really, really big projects. And so the missing piece is that without long-term price stabilization, every party in the chain is waiting for the other one to act. So you have a buyer who's only willing to pay what the commercial price of hydrogen is, which is the grey plus the carbon cost. A producer of hydrogen who needs to pay back their costs of production, which are financing and capex costs, and a lender which needs predictable cash flow in order to maximize the amount of debt into a project. And that's the only way to reduce the cost of capital on a project, which is a key determinant of the ultimate cost of production. Now, Namibia itself can be a scale producer. It's got all the elements that one needs for an international provider or host country to produce cheap and reliable hydrogen. It has the scale, it has enormous amount of land and great resources. It has a very active government, which has set up a regulatory environment which promotes the large-scale production of hydrogen. And you have a port to delivery port corridor, which is easy to navigate and doesn't have major geopolitical risk. And so you have the ability to have very, very large scale renewable supply, which you need for green hydrogen. You have the ability and space to place large electrolysis capex in the country. And you have, more than 2 million tons of ammonia production potential per year. So what is a CFD, and how does it solve the problem in the best way of both the cost of production now and the volatility of that cost? So in the graph you have in front of you, you see a gray line, and that's the lifetime cost of the alternative, which is gray ammonia plus the carbon cost. And the green line you see there is the cost of production for a project, and this is just an average project globally, which has the cost of production set at the date it's financed. And the reason it does is because you know the capex and you know what the cost of financing is. And what a CFD does is, for the producer, it tops up the price that it will receive from the market, which is the price the market is willing to pay. And when that market price exceeds its cost of production, it pays back to the provider of the CFD. And that's why it's called a two-way CFD. It's an instrument which doesn't only pay when the producer is out of money, it forces the producer to pay back when it's in the money. And so it provides steady cash flows for the producer of green hydrogen. And because of those steady cash flows, banks can finance it, because banks want stability of cash flows. The more stable, the longer and higher it can provide debt for. And then the CFD mechanism provides a guarantee mechanism effectively for that revenue stream. It allows then you, as a producer, to get lower cost debt. Your overall financing is cheaper because you've got more debt and it's at a lower cost, and that ultimately reduces your cost of production. And so if this can be done at scale, you can support scale projects delivering to Europe. And you're going to target projects, obviously, in the resource-rich countries, countries which have a stable political environment, that have great solar resources, great wind resources, and you provide the stability over the long term for that production. So why is this a CFD needed? It's because if you want to deliver a project which is going to produce very, very large volumes, you need to satisfy both the off-taker and you need to satisfy the debt provider that you have certainty for a very, very long period of time that the producer can produce at the price which is makes sense for them economically, but also that any support that they provided in terms of revenue can be guaranteed for a very, very long period of time. And when you have an alternative support, it creates two other consequences. The one consequence is that you might have to act as the temporary buyer and take on a certain amount of market and logistics risk. And the other is that because you have to do that, the amount of money that you've got to buy and then onward sell is much greater than just setting aside public budget for that difference. So you're not acting as an off-taker. It's not open-ended because you can claw back the money, and it's not a free option. So when you compare this to other subsidy mechanisms, such as capex funding, or just a fixed market premium, or the state acting as an off-taker, the CFD is much more efficient in terms of reducing production costs, making sure you have willingness to pay by the off-taker because of the certainty, reducing that price uncertainty as well, not just the off-take uncertainty, securing the long-term off-take, and then also using tax money as efficiently as possible. So what do you need to implement a CFD? It's first of all, a mandate policy decision that import security is important and that the state fiscus, either at the European level, host government and European government level, that this is recognized as the most efficient vehicle. Secondly, you have to very, very clearly specify the reference price. and it has to be transparent. So for green ammonia, you can do that. That's, for example, to the delivery to port in Northwest Europe. But of course, you have to have a data provider to do that, because you're going to be paying according to that benchmark price. Thirdly, you need to establish a budget envelope, and there has to be a justification for that budget envelope to show, of course, the economic benefits, and making sure that it's recognized as the most efficient allocation of budget for the purposes it serves. Then you have to have the market for funding comfortable with the contractual relationships. So those are the bankability rules. And then finally, in order to make it as efficient as possible, ideally you want it to be competitive, so that that strike price is at the optimum level to make sure that the producer can produce at a cost which makes sense for them, and they've got long-term certainty, and most importantly, they can get it financed with debt financiers, but also so that the public budget doesn't overpay. So we've modeled some scenarios, and we've said, in an optimized scenario, what would it cost the public fiscus? So we've looked at a scenario of providing 5 million tons supported by CFD over a period of 20 years. So these are rounds that you would have for 1 million tons of auctioning in the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth year. So it's staggered. And then we looked at what the payout from the public fiscus would be and what the returns to the public fiscus would be. And then we ascertained what the present value of those public flows would be. So in an optimized scenario, we estimate that it's going to cost about 1.3 billion euros of cumulative support to secure a 5 million ton import capacity for Europe over a 20-year period. Now, the good part of that is that because it's 5 million tons for a staggered 20 years, on average, the public support per ton of ammonia produced is actually very small, and it's as low as 12 euros per ton. So the drag on the fiscus in terms of the benefit provided to the market, the benefit provided to the off-takers that want to produce green fertilizer, green steel, et cetera, is enormous, without a huge drag on a per ton cost, obviously much lower than one would expect. So what are the benefits that you have? The benefits are not only that you just get import capacity and you're meeting the targets from a policy point of view. There's a whole lot of other benefits that the European countries themselves can accrue. First of all, there's a large part of the supply that can, from a capex point of view, be provided by European manufacturers and suppliers. Electrolysis is one of them, but not the only ones. That in turn creates jobs both in Europe and in the host country, Namibia. And then, of course, there are the long-term fiscal benefits of being able to have greater revenues for those companies supplying, importing, benefiting, and the host country itself, both fiscal benefits, tax benefits, and so forth. So based on our preliminary analysis, which is not finalized, but it's based on very high-level econometrics assumptions, we believe that in terms of total gross value added and tax and other economic benefits, that for a 5 million per ton allocation or import capacity supported, that the benefit that would accrue to the European economy is somewhere between 22 to 24 billion, which is enormous. And what's very, very important, that a lot of these economic benefits accrue prior to the CFD having to pay out public budget. So because you are supplying and you're providing the capex, a lot of these benefits accrue while you in the construction stage of the project, more so in fact than during operation. So these economic benefits accrue in the first 5 years, 3 to 5 years of a project to a much greater extent than later. And these then precede to a large extent the payout using the public budget of the CFD. And one other point to be made, that a CFD pays out only in those years of production. So while you commit to a CFD while the project is being built, The actual payouts happen later, let's say 4 years at the end of the construction period when it goes into operation, and they're not all in one go. They happen on a year-by-year basis. So the economic benefits, there are other benefits, there are economies of scale, which are very, very important for the total market to bring costs down. You're kickstarting European manufacture in a big way in certain components of the CapEx, and you're mitigating the possibility of losing this huge industrial complex to a non-European manufacturing giant. On top of that, of course, you're finding a way to meet the decarbonization goals, and you're ensuring in the best way and the most cost-effective way a pathway to the cheapest hydrogen for Europe, but in the shortest possible time. So we're happy to talk about this in a lot more detail on the Get Invest side, so feel free to contact us if you need to be. And we are providing this as a public service. We're not doing this as a CFD creation for any particular part of the value chain. We are funded by public entities, the European Commission and a number of European governments, and we are doing this on our best estimate basis. In other words, this is what we honestly believe, based on the research that we've done, as the best instrument to support the European import capacity of hydrogen over the long term, green hydrogen. So thank you very much.
Gregor, thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. I'm not sure if you heard that, but you had a very healthy round of applause here in the auditorium this afternoon. So thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation this afternoon, we're changing the order around a little bit just due to logistics. But the next presentation this afternoon is on Namibia's journey in green industrialization, vision, progress, and policy advancement by Mr. Joseph Mukendwa. Mr. Joseph Mukendwa serves as the interim head of program of the Namibian Green Hydrogen Program, and which was set up to de-risk Namibia's green industry potential with a particular focus on green fuels. With over 20 years of professional experience, 17 of which have been in managerial roles focused on strategy development and execution, Joseph has built a strong track record across multiple sectors. He previously served as a manager for institutional client services at Allan Gray, where he was responsible for managing institutional clients and business development. Earlier in his career, Joseph held several managerial roles at the Namibia Training Authority, including General Manager, National Training Fund, where he led the development and successful implementation of the National Training Fund and Training Levy. Please let's welcome Joseph to the stage. Thank you.
Ambassador Dr. Kyrian Bwende, the Director General of the National Planning Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand on the protocol that has been established. I'm extremely honored to be speaking to you this afternoon about Namibia's journey as far as green industrialization is concerned. Perfect. I just need to get guidance on how to use this clicker. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as it was indicated, mine is really a short journey, just to highlight where we've come from as a country in as far as our green industrialization journey is concerned. And it's befitting to start the conversation with, where it all started, if you ask me, and it's around Vision 2030. Vision 2030 sets out to ensure that Namibia becomes an industrialized nation and has a number of transformational aspirations that are key to why we are advancing green industrialization or industrialization generally. And these are the three that I picked out. The first one is around value addition. How can we ensure that the secondary sector has an increased contribution to our GDP by ensuring that we create local manufacturing capability and we actually provide value addition locally in Namibia. Secondly, is around creating employment, and thirdly is around narrowing or closing the inequality gap that currently exists. So Vision 2030 already sets the broad framework around which Namibia's green industrialization journey actually commenced. If we fast forward a decade and a half, we had the Harambee Prosperity Plan 2 that essentially sets out under its economic advancement pillar to investigate the feasibility of green hydrogen and ammonia as a transformative strategic industry. What then transpired after that was then the publishing, the finalization and publishing of Namibia's green hydrogen and derivatives strategy that was published in 2022. And essentially it sets out Namibia's vision for green hydrogen production. And at the core of it, the idea was we were going to produce green hydrogen and its derivatives and then export it to nations, particularly in the EU. However, over time, we've obviously changed the gear and we've identified how we can utilize green hydrogen to be able to create opportunities here locally in Namibia. What I do want to highlight on this slide is that the Namibia Green Hydrogen and Derivatives Strategy also sets out 3 key valleys around the country that are looking at the production of green hydrogen and its derivatives. One is the Southern Valley. Mostly in the Karas and Hardap region is comprised of the Southern Valley. We have the Central Valley that is the Irongo region, and the Northern Valley that is then around the Kunene region. If we fast forward a little bit, 2024 saw Namibia publishing a blueprint on Namibia's green industrialization. And essentially here, this is where we recognize that there is an opportunity with the production of green hydrogen to be able to actually create industries locally here in Namibia that will create opportunities for our people. And as per the green industrialization blueprint, it identifies 8 key industries that can actually be localized here in Namibia. However, they would require that supportive public infrastructure is actually upgraded to ensure that the industrialization aspirations can actually be realized. And this includes rail, ports. It also looks at ensuring that we support the strengthening of our electricity generation using renewables and other key infrastructure-related matters. This all then brings us to NDP 6 that was published in 2025, where it all comes together, where we've seen that green hydrogen has now been identified as a key focus area, and there are quite a number of key strategies that have been identified for us to be able to realize our aspirations in this regard. And I'll go through them fairly quickly. The first is around ensuring that there is a clear governance and institutional framework. We've heard it during today, and I was elated yesterday when I saw the announcement by the Minister of ICT around the creation of the Green Industries Council. So certainly that is very, very welcomed, and I think it sends the message around ensuring that there is a governance framework in place for the sector. From an institutional perspective, we know that Namibia Green Hydrogen Program has been in place and advancing activities within the sector. On the policy and legislation front, we heard earlier today that the policy is currently under draft. We are hoping that over the next year and a half, we'll be in a position to finalize the related legislation and get the act actually sorted out. We've also done quite a bit of work on developing common user infrastructure. There are some studies that have been carried out, and we are now embarking on stakeholder consultations and engagements to look at what is the best way to set out our infrastructure for the benefits of our projects as well. On an environmental side of things, we've advanced quite a lot in the sustainable environmental and social development sphere. We have the strategic environmental and social assessments that are currently underway. I'm happy to inform you that the SESA, as it's called, for the Southern Valley should be concluded within the month of May. I'm hoping, I'm looking at Eileen here, I'm putting her on the spot. June, okay. So we should have it finalized sometime in June. And the SESA for the Central Valley is currently on the go. We're hoping that come sometime next year, the process does take a bit of time. We'll hopefully have a study that sets out what are some of the land use recommendations, taking into consideration our environment, our people, and so forth. I think another key area that has been mentioned quite a bit is around prioritizing skills development. There's a lot of work that has gone into this, and I must use this opportunity that we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without the support of our partners. We have quite a number of initiatives that are currently on the go. We've allocated a number of scholarships to Namibians that are now being trained in identified areas. We are also advancing and finalizing a skills development strategy that outlines the needs for the sector, so hopefully that will be concluded in the not too distant future. On funding mobilization, I think this is a topic for discussion as part of the panel, but we've also seen quite a number of significant strides in this regard. SDG Namibia 1 as a fund was mentioned earlier, but what I want to also highlight is that the Namibian government applied for the Climate Investment Fund's Industry Decarbonization Program, and we actually have an opportunity now to be able to access up to $250 million to support our green industrialization initiatives. So we are basically advancing funding mobilization, but if you look at the quantum of what is required for the projects, certainly a lot more is required. And then lastly, which was part of the presentation that was just done shortly, was around advancing a contract for difference. We've identified this as a mechanism that could be a potential game changer for the sector, and it's articulated in our NDP6. I think those were just overall the key strategies. There's quite a lot more that we're busy with. Just wanting to highlight the very, very key ones. But it's not only about ambition. We have quite a number of projects at different stages of development, as it has been indicated. And this slide just illustrates that. We have about 6 that are within the Central Valley and 3 that are in the Southern Valley at different stages of development. And this just shows some visuals of 3 select projects. On the left there, we have High Iron, we have Dowrus in the middle, and then the Clean Energy on the right-hand side. Now, I think it's also important to highlight that we've seen quite a number of, or at least been able to see impact being created by the sector. Even though we're just starting, we've actually been able to do quite a lot over a very short period of time. We've seen a number of projects move through development into actual construction, into production. We've also been in a position to raise significant amounts of funding to support the sector in the form of grants. In excess of 98 million euros has been raised in grants. And I think in the prior session it was highlighted, some of the initiatives that were supported, including the program and its capacity. We've also been able to see over 100 million invested in green hydrogen projects. And then I mentioned earlier, through the CIF IDP, we are likely to be able to unlock about 16 billion Namibian dollars in low-cost loans to support various projects locally. And from an employment perspective, we've seen in excess of 900 jobs created to date, but indications are that we should be in a position to create in excess of 30,000 jobs by 2030. Now, I think we all know that the story is not all sweet and rosy. There are some challenges that we are experiencing, and some of which will be discussed, and this is why we have some of these platforms to engage with our partners so that we can find solutions to the challenges that we are identifying. Financing gaps have been mentioned. How do we ensure that we put in place blended finance interventions to be able to support the projects? Long-term offtake agreements is one that has been highlighted, so I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion in the panel, how we can come up with some interventions to support this. Infrastructure development, enabling infrastructure is key to achieving our green industrialization aspirations. Skill shortages as well as local enterprise capacity is actually a key focus area for us to ensure that Namibians truly get to benefit in this new sector. I would like to then finish off by just highlighting that whilst the challenges are there, I think it was mentioned by the Ambassador Dr. Karen Bwende around challenges are just not challenges, but they are opportunities in disguise. So I actually ask that we engage meaningfully, and I'm sure we'll be in a position to hold hands and drive Namibia's green industrialization forward for the benefit of both Namibia as well as our partners from the EU. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I think he deserves another round of applause. Thank you. Our final presentation this afternoon is on EU policy and market framework, and that's by Mr. Thomas Opperer. Thomas will be giving the presentation virtually this afternoon. So Thomas, I just want to check that you are online. I'll just give, let me just give his bio. Trying to connect him, okay. Whilst he's connecting, let me give his bio, if that's okay. Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Great. Thomas is the Policy Officer Director General for International Partnerships at the European Commission, a development professional at the European Commission in the Directorate General for International Partnerships, where he focuses on climate change and sustainable energy. A trained civil engineer, he began his career in the private sector before joining the European Commission in 2006. He has held postings across Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific, and is now based at the Commission in Brussels. His experience spans infrastructure development and financing, private sector development, transport, agriculture, climate change, and energy. Thomas's work bridges technical and policy dimensions of international partnerships with a particular focus on advancing sustainable energy transitions, from scaling renewable infrastructure to shaping the financial and regulatory frameworks that make it possible. Thank you very much. Is Thomas available? You have an issue with the connection. Okay, no problem. I think if that's okay, then we need to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our panel discussion. So I would like to call the panelists, please, to the stage. The first panelist that we have this afternoon is Mr. Paulo Galleri. Paulo is the Chief Operating Officer of Zero Europe with more than 29 years' experience. As COO, Paulo leads the origination of green molecule projects, including the green ammonia project in Namibia and the engineering and technical team for Zero Europe. Thank you, Paulo. Please. Our next panelist is Ms. Nicole Hearn. She is Head of Transaction Namibia Green Hydrogen Program and is responsible for supporting government-linked green hydrogen projects to achieve final investment decision, facilitating blended finance mechanisms to unlock the sector as well as create appropriate fiscal regimes. Please can we give a hand to Nicole. Thank you. Our next panelist is Mr. Manuel Geiger, Vice President and Head of International Business Development at Enetrag. Manuel is Vice President and Head of International Business, a leading global renewable energy company specializing in wind, solar, and green hydrogen solutions. In addition, he is a member of the Board of Directors in Hyphen Hydrogen Energy in Windhoek, Namibia. Welcome to the stage. Thank you. Then we have Jean-Philippe Merlet, Sales Director of Original Equipment Africa, Bosch. Since 2021, Jean-Philippe has taken up the position of Director of Bosch Mobility Solutions with the African regional responsibility of leading mobility solution sales. Jean-Philippe also serves as the board of the NAACAM National Executive Committee. I'm not sure, you'll have to tell me afterwards what that means, but of South Africa since January 2022. Welcome to the stage. And then our final panelist for this afternoon is Mr. Martin Koopman. Martin is the project manager, international hydrogen supply chains at the Port of Rotterdam. He has more than 25 years of experience in the development and management of ports and offshore terminals. Since January 2025, Martin is leading a joint project team with Namibia to develop a hydrogen hub complex at Angra Point in southwest Namibia. Welcome to the stage, Martin. Okay, so it would be, is Thomas online? Okay, great. We also have Thomas Opera, who's also one of our panelists this afternoon. So I can just say 2 words about Thomas as well. Sorry, I just need to find my page here. So Thomas Opera is the Policy Officer of International Partnerships, as I've already mentioned, and is focused on climate change and sustainable energy. So Thomas, also welcome to the panel this afternoon.
Thank you.
Our first question this afternoon will go to our lady on the panel. So Nicole, please could you give us your views on how is Namibia positioning itself as a long-term, low-cost and low-risk supplier of green hydrogen to Europe, and what interventions of support is Namibia looking to receive from the EU to enable the sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Just move a bit closer to the mic. So Namibia is exceptionally well positioned, and my boss, Mr. Mukendwa, mentioned some of the excellent advantages that we have. And so I'll mention some of those initially, which is firstly that we have world-class renewable energy endowment in terms of our solar irradiance levels. We also have excellent wind resources in certain areas of the country that happen to be negatively correlated with solar, meaning that we have more of a consistent stream of tapping into production of green hydrogen, which of course positions Namibia at a very competitive place on the sort of global hydrogen cost production scale. So that's the first benefit or position that we have. We also have a stable investment-friendly environment, which of course we see in Namibia's strong commitment to governance, ESG alignment, as well as to sustainable industrialisation. And Joseph mentioned some of those in the Vision 2030, NDP6. We have clear targets, which I think are very specific and also very prescriptive, which is always positive for an investment landscape. We also have an integrated green industrialization strategy, so not just on the hydrogen production, but really about building full value chains, including ammonia, synthetic fuels, green minerals processing hubs, ammonia production. So we're kind of looking at creating a basket of attractive inputs for Europe. Then we also have strategic port infrastructure for export to Europe. So of course we are well positioned in terms of our access to ships and shipping, particularly ships that are coming from Asia and traveling all the way to Europe. We have a great sort of middle ground hub for refueling purposes, for restocking purposes, and also for, of course, just loading the vessels on the way from Asia to Europe routes. So that's super positive. We also have the opportunity to create green bunkering hubs because of our sort of middle spot location from the east to Europe. And then we, of course, have an alignment with Europe's decarbonization needs, which we know are quite big on Europeans. The agenda for Europe going forward, which is really around sort of low carbon manufacturing, more environmentally friendly processes, and low carbon fuels. So that's really, we really are looking at how we can create all of those supply channels to Europe and of course beyond as well. And what support are we seeking? And what is the EU already providing? So, of course, there's the continuous need for very important, which Joseph also mentioned, which is around the concessional capital and blended finance facilities. So we already have some fit-for-purpose capital, particularly in the SDG 1 fund, which has done a great job to support many of the pilot projects on their current journey. But there's, of course, a need to continue with the next stage of financing, as well as all of the infrastructure. And we're busy doing that now with our Climate Investment Fund sectoral investment plan and putting it all together. And of course, there's always a need for more European capital, suitable grants, technical support, and also potential partnerships. Then there's, of course, the technical assistance for energy planning and grid integration, which is necessary. And we already have some programs through EU Get Transform programs for long-term energy planning. We also have various GIZ funding pockets looking at the energy compact and how we can partnership with the World Bank and how we can really optimize on the renewable energy integration and creation of new industries. Then, of course, the EU to develop and continue supporting on infrastructure. So I know there are some key strategic partnerships, which is why we have, for example, Martijn on the stage, where the European ports are looking at partnering with Namibian ports. And then there's, of course, the clear need for being an off-taker. and creating secure commitments, as at the moment we are in a bit of a chicken and an egg situation where, you know, we have these projects that are looking to progress to FID. We also have clear European demand, but we need it to be concrete, we need it to be certain, and we need it to be bankable so that we can actually get the products to final commercial stage. So I think that's really the ask, I think, and I'm sure many of the project developers would agree with me. We need that level of certainty because we have so much that we've done and we've walked this amazing road and we're so close to the finish line, and we just need that one extra puzzle piece to really kind of get traction. So yeah, I think whether that's in the form of auctions, CFDs, direct purchasing. So yeah, sorry, long answer, but had a lot to say.
Thanks very much, Nicole. I'm sure we're going to unpack it a little bit more in the next half an hour. The next question goes to Martijn. So turning to the physical flow of hydrogen into Europe as one of the primary import points into northwestern Europe, how is the Port of Rotterdam and the Netherlands positioning itself with regards to preparing and supporting the importation of green hydrogen both in Namibia, from Namibia to Netherlands? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. I think it was mentioned before what the Namibians would like to see from the Europeans is candor, capital, and long-term investment. I really appreciated that. So I think I'll give a candid answer in the general expectation of hydrogen. When we came out with our first master plan in 2019, the projections were still relatively modest. And when the Ukraine war started, some of those projections, ambitions were increased, and that's created what some people call the hype. But the interesting thing that we notice now is if we look now at where we are compared to where we thought we were going to go towards 6 years ago when we came out with our first plan, we're actually further than we expected then. So the hydrogen development, the economy in Rotterdam, in Northwest Europe, is moving fast. I can tell you next week, Dr. Mwende will be in Rotterdam, as will our king be in Rotterdam to open the first hydrogen pipeline through the port. 40 kilometers of pipeline to distribute hydrogen from our local production facilities and our import terminals to various off-takers and to a connection point for the extension of the pipeline called the Delta Rhine corridor into the German area of North Rhine-Westphalen, where all the big German industry is. And that's where the big demand is going to be. As Nicole mentioned, we're all waiting for the demand. Who really wants this hydrogen? And I think it's fair to say that we've all been a bit disappointed with progress the last 2 years, but we really believe that after 2030, 31, 32, that demand is really going to take off. Our pipeline, the Delta Rhine corridor, will be operational in 2032, and we know that, for instance, a number of German steel industries are looking at starting to use hydrogen for their production facilities. Now, what are we doing in Rotterdam? Besides the hydrogen pipeline, which is going to be opened next week by the King, we have Shell building the first hydrogen production plant. So we are producing hydrogen ourselves using offshore wind. Unfortunately, we only have 45% of the time wind, whereas here in Namibia, the desert, together with sun, we're looking at an 80% capacity factor. So although we have decided to be independent, we are building a number of local hydrogen production plants. Shell's the first one, operational end of this year. Air Liquide to be following 2 years after. We do see in the longer term that we're going to have to import a lot of hydrogen derivatives from overseas countries like Namibia. Hence, our terminals are also progressing well. We have an existing ammonia terminal, which is looking to triple its capacity, also by the end of the year. Currently importing grey ammonia, no longer from the Middle East, but from other locations. That they are anticipating the first green ammonia imports from countries like Egypt, like India, like Spain, also to be happening before the end of the decade. So further terminals being developed. We have a total of around 5 ammonia terminals. We're already the biggest methanol trading hub of Rotterdam. Those methanol terminals are also expanding with an anticipation of imported RFNBO methanol. And of course, we see the kerosene market taking off. And maybe last but not least to say, last year, May, we had the world's first import ammonia bunkering operation, ship to ship, inside the port. And this is an operation that we prepared really, really well, also together with our colleagues from Antwerp. We're great partners on these specific subjects, also here in Namibia. And we managed to have a first safe transfer of ammonia product from one ship to the other. And in the future, we anticipate that quite a number of those ships will be burning ammonia instead of diesel in order to reduce their CO2 emissions. So we're progressing and moving on really well.
Martin, thanks so much. It sounds like some really good progress that you're making there. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'd like to turn to Thomas. Thomas, can you hear us online?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
The next question is for you, and it goes like this. Green hydrogen and its derivatives are emerging across a range of value chains at different stages of commercial maturity, with different demand dynamics and different partner country development potential. How is the EU approaching the heterogeneous landscape, and what does that mean for how instrument responses are being considered as the market develops?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, we heard it already that green hydrogen trade at scale, it has no precedent. Technologies are new, the markets are forming, regulatory frameworks are still being calibrated, and the economics, honestly, they move faster than any policy cycle can anticipate. The response to this, in essence, has to be dynamic, building the conditions that allow for viable supply chains to emerge, adapting frameworks that reflect market realities as they become clearer, and developing partnerships that serve both European partners, Europeans, and partner country interests. The question itself somehow captures the portfolio as it evolves. Different value chains are at different stages of maturity, and they require different responses. For example, we see green iron and fertilizers. There are indications that the economics for these products are moving closer to parity. That means CapEx support will probably be sufficient, and offtake can be secured on commercial terms. I think the Hiron project in Namibia is a tangible demonstration of these developments. Then we see for sustainable aviation fuels and maritime fuels. Here, legal mandates, demand mandates mean the primary challenge is cost reduction, certification, rather than demand. The targets create the demand. For bulk hydrogen and ammonia, as commodity imports, the picture is a bit more complex. The green-gray price gap lands, in its rawest form, with no value chain cushion in between them. And the instrument conversation, I think, is the most relevant for this segment. On import partnerships, more broadly, the EU is engaging through Global Gateway and Team Europe in bilateral frameworks that we have built, including with Namibia. And this is a commitment to the partnership that serve both European energy security and the green industrialization in partner countries. The portfolio of projects that emerge from these partnerships is increasingly diverse from a geographic and from a value chain perspective. And I think that diversity is a feature which contributes in itself to a supply security. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. We could hear you very well. Thank you for those words. I'm going to turn now to Paulo. Paulo, Zero is one of the key players advancing green hydrogen projects in Namibia. From a developer's perspective, what does it take to move from early stage development to financial close? And give us your perspective on the main gates. Thank you.
Okay, this is a very good question. I think that I can say what we are doing, what we did since we begin in our journey together, Grant. So now some of the points have been already touched by Nicole, so I'll try to summarize a little bit. So The first thing, I would say that there are mainly 4 different key gates, which are strictly related one of each other to the risk in the project during the development of the project itself. The first one is the technology maturity, so the selection of the technology. With all the due respect, these projects are industrial ecosystem, different industrial ecosystem, including several units, electrolyzer, battery, infrastructure, ammonia. So the first point was, and is, in my view, to the risk project, the right selection of the technology. Especially because this project rely on energy, which is produced during the day and during the night, but it's a flow of energy which has to be controlled. Obviously, the selection of the technology is also directly linked to the selection of the best technology and the best technology price. Because if at the end of the day, you have a very nice plant, very well designed, but the cost is not something that you can sustain, okay, very nice work, very nice paper, but very nice paper, the project is not moving forward. And this is the first point. Obviously, the second point, what we did was the engagement with all the local stakeholders. You cannot have a project, especially this type of projects, which are really new projects worldwide, if you don't engage since the beginning all the local stakeholders. Local stakeholders for me means starting from the government, at government level, with all the ED, all the local TSO, name water, name power, all the municipality. Here I can say that I can see movement on this respect, but the pace on which the regulatory framework is happening in Namibia should be the same pace that we need to develop the project. Because if at the end of the day we will have a very nice project, very competitive, but not regulation in place in Namibia, we will simply not have the project. The third pillar for me is Nicole touched it already, is the capital structure and blended facility. What we did, we engaged as the DG Namibia 1, and I think together we are doing a great job. But I think SDG Namibia 1 is not only a partner for us to the risk part of the capital that we are developing for the project, but it's important for the involvement of the Namibian government in the project itself, and also to bring capital during the construction phase. So they will be a sort of catalytic vehicle for us to move the project ahead. And last but not least, obviously the off-takers. But in this case, what we did, and I think that, as Martin said, the market is ready. It will be ready in 2030, 2031. Off-takers are there, because if the off-takers recognize that your project is a serious project, CAPE competitive project, has all the ingredients, and Namibia has all the ingredients, they start talking with you. So I can say that we already secure all the capacity of our production, which is 500,000 tons, obviously through non-binding agreement, but then we will sit and talk and finalize the binding agreement when the project is maturing at different steps. So I think these are the 4 pillars, Grant.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I'm making some notes to just summarize at the end. And then I would like to turn to our penultimate panelist, Jean-Philippe. With increasing competition from Asia in the technology sector, how is Bosch looking to ensure competitiveness into the future? And is Bosch seeking for European content in the build-out of green hydrogen supply projects to Europe? We would love to hear your views. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Maybe quick introductions regarding Bosch and my presence here today, because you may most probably know Bosch for drilling machine and washing machines. And that's not why I'm here. We are a small international group. We have our root based in Germany, in Stuttgart, but we're quite international. I'll just give two figures for the sizing of the company. We are 100 billion yearly turnover, more or less, and 350,000 employees worldwide. And 2/3 of our turnover and our business is currently in the automotive industry, on the mobility sectors. Within the mobility sectors, we are currently facing massive global transformations. We have new energy vehicles. We are facing new players, a lot of challenges. One of these are on the new energy transitions are the electrical vehicles and the vehicles running with cleaner energy, where hydrogen has definitely a role to play. And on this, we as Bosch, we are very much betting into this long-term future of the hydrogen and hydrogen molecules to play a significant role on cleaning the mobility sectors. And we were one of the first supporting these new technologies that will allow the vehicles to become cleaner with electric and hydrogen technologies. In the frame of the hydrogen technologies, we are also facing the difficult ramping up and the chicken and egg issues, where the car manufacturers and vehicle manufacturers are struggling to invest because they don't see the market growing and the demand growing, and the demand is not growing because they are also waiting for the green molecules to be available on the market. And in order to play a role on all the ecosystem, we decided 5-6 years ago to be present on the overall ecosystem. So Bosch is industrial and technology providers, and in the H2 ecosystem, we are working on the downstream and on the upstream of the ecosystems, supplying as our legacy core business fuel cell powertrain, internal combustion engines with H2 as a fuel, or a blend of H2 and another fuels. And we are also supporting the industries through gas compressors, and we also invest for the generation of green H2 into a PEM electrolyzer stack business unit over the past years, and we just starting in 2025 the first commercializations of our PEM stack. All of this H2 ecosystem still belongs to the Bosch mobility sectors, because we are aiming to use our excellent engineers, our excellence in the industry, to supply a large-scale PEM stack in an industrial scale, in a competitive environment, at a very competitive price. That's, in short, why a French guy living in South Africa, working for a German company on the mobility sectors, is here today to speak about H2. And come back to the questions, and it's a very competitive and very challenging environment. On the generation of H2, on the electrolysis, we are first facing the technology choice. As Paolo mentioned, it's one of the key aspects of the project managers, which technology to pick. On the electrolysis itself, we are battling between two main technologies, alkaline and PEM. And we, as Bosch, we are only supporting and working on the PEM technologies, because this is what looks like very much our industry core business. And it's already a key question to become competitive, because compared to my co-panelists, I'm very much down the food chain. We're supporting component, one or few components throughout the complete ecosystem. We are a bit far away from the project managers and the project developers. We are a bit far away from the end off-takers. But we all together try to consolidate the overall demand of the global request from the different project developers. And we see the fight and the move between alkaline and PEM. And we are very proud to have already served a few projects. The first one in Europe, mainly a small-scale project, 5-10 megawatt, PEM electrolyzers. And we are now looking and investigating a lot, and investing a lot to enter in the large-scale project, where in such a large scale, we see that a huge majority of the technology will most probably go to the alkaline technology. But depending on the renewable energy profile, we still believe that a fair share of 10, 15, 20% of the electrolysis technology may come from the PEM technology because of the capacity to assume the variability of the energy supply coming from the renewables. But then, again, Paolo mentioned it as well, the second key pillar is the competitiveness. And come back to the question, the competitiveness is the key factors to succeed on this market, as on the automotive industry, still trying to make the link with from where we are coming from and the mobility. We try to be as competitive as we can. We have, and we worked a lot into our supply chain and into our industry assets. Our ambitions is to produce large scale on a similar to the automotive industry concept, large, repeatable, very high level of quality and technicity of our process. And the scale effect will hopefully bring us the competitiveness in terms of PEM stack price for the end consumers and the leverage cost of the hydrogen for the project developers. We are also facing the Asian competitiveness, and again, it's not new. We also try to take benefit of it via our supply chain. So we have also some of the elements of our supply chain which are coming from Asia to make our end product competitive. But you also mentioned on the second part of the questions how to get more and more EU content, especially when it's come from EU grant fundings or EU fundings or even EU-based project. And this is part of our new global complexity where, as a global stakeholders and the global players, we have to assess the regional constraints. And again, it's not something new, it's maybe something slightly more complex, especially on a nascent industry like the green H2, where to become competitive, we need to consolidate most of the volumes in a limited number of players to, again, get benefit of the scale effect. And, but we're trying to do our best to manage both.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to have a French guy working in a German company, living in South Africa, presenting in Windhoek. Thanks for being here.
Indeed.
Last but not least, I'm going to ask Emmanuel to please say a couple of words for us, and then we are a little bit pressed for time, but you have, I think, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep it short.
Sorry for that. So Emmanuel, large-scale green hydrogen projects in Namibia are technically feasible, but challenges remain to reach FID, final investment decision. From an investor and developer perspective, what specific elements of a CFD structure are most critical to reducing financing costs and make these projects genuinely bankable? Thank you.
No, Grant. Thanks for that. And I'll keep it short. I think that's the benefit of being the last one in the round. I think a lot of points have already been mentioned, so I tried to focus it on our situation. I mean, maybe just give you a bit of an update in terms of how we see the global situation in terms of projects right now. I think a lot of projects globally have been technically de-risked. I think projects have been moving forward. We see a lot of large-scale projects basically having reached a certain stage, but then a lot of projects have stopped. And a lot of these projects have been targeting the EU markets. I think it's clear that EU, as the largest potential off-taker for ammonia and hydrogen, is the target market for a lot of the large-scale projects. What we've seen over the last couple of years, of course, there was a bit of a delay with regards to implementation of the EU regulation. And of course, that hasn't really helped with regards to firm up off-take agreements. So what we see, a lot of projects, as I said, have been technically de-risked, but basically waiting for these last to go. And I think now, over the last 6-8 months, over the last year, we saw a bit more traction coming up on that one, given the fact that now the EU regulation is subsequently, slowly but steady, implemented in national law. And of course, I think Greg pointed it out now, we have a clear quota on what the industry needs to achieve, and that has given a bit of traction. At the same time, and this is a situation where we are right now, we are in a situation where we are now able, we still don't have, it's still a very immature market, right? We don't have a liquid market, there's no market price signal, so we do require certain regulatory security, but also, of course, sort of a revenue security. I mean, it's very similar to what we have seen at that point in time when LNG was implemented. If you look at how Qatar at that point in time, which we recently made the news, of course, again, how they implemented the first LNG train. It was actually built on a long-term commitment from the Japanese government at that point in time. And I think we see a similar commitment or a similar situation now with regards to hydrogen. I think it's clear that we are, at the same time, given the delay in implementation of regulation, we also saw, as I said before, a lot of projects piling up now. There's a higher competitive situation. Countries are lining up to basically become a local trade partner towards Europe. And of course, that has increased the competitive situation. So right now, we are in a situation we either have to go fully cost competitive, but as we all know, I mean, that would mean that the European content is significantly reduced. And I think this is also the reason why and a lot of the motivation behind structuring a CFD scheme out of Europe is, to one hand, of course, provide that revenue security, but at the same time, of course, also being linked to European content, allow European technologies to basically be implemented in these projects. And I think it's very clear we are right now in a, let's say, in an intersection, and I think Europe is in an intersection. Do we actually want to get the cheapest hydrogen possible, implement into Europe? At that point in time, that means the projects will very likely have a significant Northern Asian component in it, or the alternative is there's a clearly implemented CFD scheme that allows European content to come in and at the same time provide this long-term revenue security. And I think this is the pathway where we are right now. This is the pathway where we are at Hyphen. We are quite confident that, I mean, Namibia is certainly with regards to the resources, with regards to the conditions on the ground. I mean, all of it has mentioned the regulatory framework in Namibia itself, government contribution, the natural resources, of course, is certainly one of the top 3 locations globally. So that is not the issue. I think for us, it's the issue more on the demand side. I think that's where Europe needs to decide where it walks, and I think at that point in time we are, and yeah, we're waiting for the decisions next couple of months.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the progress being made by Port of Rotterdam this afternoon. You've heard something and some views of OEM, original equipment manufacturers. You've heard a perspective on the market view and what's happening around the world. You've heard a little bit about how Namibia is positioning itself and the support required, what the different milestones of a developer is in terms of project development, and then you've also heard a perspective on the value chains. Unfortunately, we had hoped to do a second round of questions, but just due to the time, we're not going to be able to do that this afternoon. I'm going to ask, there's a video that needs to be played now, so ask the panel just to stay seated, please. If we can play that video, that would be super. Thank you.
Maybe I can explain the video. This is some of the results of the work that we've been doing in the last 5 months in Luderitz. Port facility, you see here the beautiful town of Luderitz, a port facility design work that we've been doing thanks to the EU Global Gateway funding. That was a very short shot of it. It's a little bit longer. There you go. As you all may know, we have a cooperation agreement with Namport to assist them in developing Angra Point into a green hub for both green hydrogen derivative exports as well as green minerals exports. It's the old port, Robert Harbour Extension, which we have nothing to do with, and it's not certain whether it's going ahead. Then across the bay, that's where Angra Point is, and that's where we have envisaged a liquid bulk berth, a minerals bulk berth, and a project cargo berth. And this specific work was focused on the multi-user general minerals berth, which is the one in the middle. But this movie is showing all 3. And particularly important to show here is the construction works that need to be done. Very difficult environment to build in, hard soil conditions. You see the liquid first ammonia vessel arriving, then green minerals, green manganese to be exported from the multi-user berth, either in bulk form or in containerized form. Manganese needed for the European battery market, as well as the green steel market, to actually produce very large wind turbine sections, which we aim to then receive here on the 3rd facility, which is the project cargo berth. Some of this early design was done together with Hyphen and Namport, and specifically the multi-user berth was done now with EU funding. And the really important message that I wanted to show with this very last shot that you're seeing now is how little the footprint actually is of both the ammonia plant, which you see at the top, and the port facility as well, and how much we leave nature, which is very sensitive there, both onshore as well as in the water. We try to leave untouched. We're trying to strike a balance between nature, tourism, and industry and jobs for Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to try and see if we can just get Thomas back. Thomas, you have literally 5 minutes to present, if you can. Unfortunately, I'll have to stop you because we are running against the clock. But for 5 minutes, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for this very interesting discussion. The presentation should, of course, come before the panel session, but I think it might be still useful to share it. We switch to the first slide, please. Yes. I have only 5 minutes. Okay, Europe has lived through 2 crises now in less than 5 years, and we all have seen that dependency has a price. In Europe, the disruption have caused a serious impact on chemical, steel manufacturing and industry, and they are so absorbed this shock directly to prices, but also in energy importing partner countries. We have seen same price surge translated into higher fertilizer prices, costs more expensive food, fiscal pressure on already stretched resources. And these shocks reveal a system. This is where the crisis revealed a predictable consequence of building economies continuously on fossil fuels that are finite, graphically concentrated, and makes volatility a feature. Renewables and hydrogen, more specifically, they can change this location. We know this in some time. Renewable hydrogen produced where sun and wind are most abundant is part of a structural answer to this problem. And it is a critical enabler for sectors where transitioning away from fossil fuels is the hardest: steel, chemicals, fertilizers, shipping, aviation. And critically, green hydrogen creates the basis for a partnership with countries that have the resources built around shared value chains, green industrialization, and mutual economic interests. And that is the frame that follows. And the EU has responded to this structural challenge. And let me show where we stand here with the architecture of the framework. Next slide, please. I think we have also heard before already about the regulations. There are regulations for rules and targets, and they provide the foundation. The regulatory framework establishes the standards of what counts actually as renewable hydrogen, as it is called in the EU terminology. And this is a certification architecture that gives EU demand its environmental credibility, and it gives partner country producers their market access pathway. On top of it, it provides for legally amended targets. We have heard already about them. This is the RED 3, the Renewable Energy Directive 3 targets, 42% of industrial hydrogen to be renewable by 2030, the Fuel Maritime Directive that progressively tightens emissions for ships calling at EU ports, and the Refuel Aviation Mandate, which mandates sustainable aviation fuel, including e-kerosene produced from renewable hydrogen. This means hydrogen has moved from a strategic option to address these strategic challenges to a legal requirement in key sectors. Now, we need to close this gap. There is a regulation alone does not make green hydrogen cost competitive. And this is where carbon pricing and the ETS system comes in. ETS stands for the EU emission trading system, and this puts a price on emissions across industries and power, narrowing the cost gap between green and fossil-based production. This is complemented by the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, the CBAM, which extends the logic of the emission trading system to imports, ensuring that steel, fertilizers, and hydrogen derivatives entering the EU market are on a level playing field that awards the green production. And we talked before about the market, and I mentioned it. It is still an evolving and it's still a dynamic market, and this means adapting pragmatically is critical. In an evolving sector like green hydrogen, the framework has to be responsive, in particular as the hydrogen ramp-up has been slower than anticipated. The Commission has therefore announced a targeted review of renewable hydrogen production criteria to accelerate deployment. That is the framework in motion, responding to market realities without abandoning its sustainability foundations. Next slide, please. Framework creates a demand condition, and the question is, where does the supply come from and on what terms? Here, the EU demand framework creates a pull on the demand side. These are the targets that I mentioned before. But it's equally important to build the supply side that delivers the mutual benefits that green industrial value chains hold. And this is where Global Gateway comes into play. It is the instrument through which the EU is contributing to building the supply side in a genuine partnership with countries that have the resources, the ambition, and the investment conditions. And this goes beyond the molecules. The sectors driving hydrogen demand in the EU, steel, fertilizer, shipping, aviation, are the same sectors where partner countries have the greatest industrial potential. Green iron produced with green hydrogen shipped to European steel producers, green ammonia for fertilizers, replacing fossil-based imports, sustainable maritime fuels, and electro-sustainable aviation fuels produced by renewable electricity, cheapest and most abundant. This is the value chain logic that makes Global Gateway strategically coherent with a partnership that goes both ways. EU brings regulatory frameworks, market access, technology, and finance, and partner countries bring renewables, ambition, and the economic imperative to industrialize cleanly. This means green industrialization and supply security as one shared agenda designed together. And players are emerging. Namibia, Mauritania, South Africa, Chile, India, just to name a few, are emerging as early movers, each through a different path. In each case, it is a combination of government proactivism, private sector appetite, and improving investment conditions that is driving the process forward. With EU engagement through Global Gateway amplifying that momentum that already exists on the ground. This shows Team Europe in action. Global Gateway deploys a coordinated toolkit, including technical cooperation to support partners in strengthening the regulatory frameworks, project preparation, and the investment climate. Risk-tolerant finance through instruments like Climate Investor 3, which brings capital to early-stage projects where commercial finance alone is insufficient. Investments in transport infrastructure to connect production in partner countries with demand centers in Europe. Technical and vocational training to create employment opportunities as the green industrialization advances. And results are tangible. I mentioned already iron in Namibia as one of the first industrial-scale green iron production in Southern Africa, also supported by EU-backed Climate Investor 3, which also invests in large-scale ammonia projects, Hyphen and Zero. In Paraguay, EIB is investing in green fertilizers with offtake secured with Yara as a counterparty. In South Africa, we invest, again through Climate Investor 3, in green methanol and green ammonia. Please, next slide then.
Thomas, I'm going to have to start asking you to wrap up, please. Thank you.
All right, then we wrap up. We go to de-risking the green hydrogen investment. We heard already, cost of capital is a critical issue. Green hydrogen projects are capital intensive, long in development, and located in markets that carry specific risks. That combination drives the weighted cost of capital to levels that make projects unviable, even where underlying economics would be sound. The EU response is a layered de-risking architecture, investment grants, guarantees, and patient concessional capital, to name the most essential ones. And there is demand certainty. Reducing the cost of capital is necessary but insufficient. Projects also need to credible long-term signals that hydrogen and its derivatives will find a market. We heard that before. And the instruments that we deploy, they include at the EU level, the EU hydrogen mechanism, which is connecting European buyers with global suppliers, Domestically, the European Hydrogen Bank has supported early stage projects through competitive auctions, and at member states level, there is H2 Global, a double auction mechanism that connects international producers with EU buyers. What is important is that bankability gap and the viability gap cannot be closed by any single lever, and it cannot be closed by any single actor. The EU provides a framework, the private sector operates with it, member states bring in bilateral instruments, export credit facilities, and development financing mandates. The DFI brings scale, credit enhancement, and the capacity to crowd in the capital. I think this is the framework as it stands. Demand architecture, the certification conditions, the partnership instruments, and the instruments already in deployment. So I will finish here within the allotted time. I hope I have not exceeded the 5 minutes by too much. Thank you.
Thomas, thank you so much, and apologies also from our side for the time pressure. We started late and needed to try and make up some time, so thank you for your indulgence. We do appreciate that. I think he deserves a round of applause, please. I hope you can hear that. I hope you can hear the applause, Thomas. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now wrapping up this session. Unfortunately, the Honourable Director General needed to leave, but it is my distinct honour and privilege to call upon the Executive Director of National Planning Commission to close this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, moderator, for giving me the floor. I stand here in the shoes of Honorable Dr. Kaire Mbwende, the Director General of the National Planning Commission. He has just stepped out for a bilateral meeting with Mrs. Jessica Roswell, the Commissioner for Environment, Water Resilience, and Competitive Circular Economy for the EU Commission, so he's still in. He has given me some notes to share with you, and I will really just summarize by really expressing our appreciation for the depth of the discussion that we have here today. And this session, what it has really done, it really sets out what we need to do, which is really to confront the realities of the market, and most importantly, to identify what must be done next. Namibia's green hydrogen sector has really moved beyond ambition. There is clear policy direction, which is anchored in our latest National Development Plan, NDP6, and also this is evidenced and supported by the growing pipeline of projects. The question is that we are now confronted is how can we move quickly to implement at scale? At the same time, Europe faces an equally urgent imperative, and we need to really to secure where they need to secure diversified, reliable, and sustainable energy supply. And therefore, the Namibia-EU partnership is really strategic. Distinguished delegates, today's discussion have really highlighted that the opportunity is real, but the market is not yet operational. And therefore, the cost gap between the green hydrogen and the conventional fuel remains a barrier. Demand signals, while growing, are not yet sufficiently firm, and the policy implementation on both sides must accelerate so that we can match the pace of our ambition. This is precisely where instruments such as the contracts for difference, alongside other broader de-risking mechanisms, have become crucial and critical. The contracts for difference are not simply financial tools, they are market enablers. They provide the certainty that is required to unlock the investment to support early stage projects and to bridge the transition from pilot to scale. But beyond financing, today's discussion have also underscored the importance of the partnership architecture. For Namibia, green hydrogen is not just an export story, it is, it is a green industrialization pathway. It is about enabling local industries, creating jobs, and ensuring that value is retained. And also about building new industrial base, the one that is low carbon, globally competitive, and inclusive. And surely for Europe, this partnership offers more than a supply diversification. Therefore, the notion of linking support mechanisms such as contract for difference to structural participation by European technology is therefore practical and strategic. It creates a win-win dynamic. However, we need to be clear that these outcomes will not materialize automatically. They will require deliberate alignment of our policies, framework, of our financing instruments, our timelines, and the intent. Namibia stands ready, and therefore under the leadership of the National Planning Commission, and in collaboration with all the line ministries and partners, we are actively advancing the enabling environment required to move projects forward. Advanced policy refinement, great infrastructure of planning, and the structured stakeholder engagement that is required. And it is for that reason that the government has approved the establishment of the Green Industries Councils, which will really serve as a principal interministerial coordination body, facilitating cross-sectoral collaboration and policy harmonization. So we therefore call on our European partners to move with us decisively and with the urgency that is really required to accelerate development and deployment of the demand-side support mechanism, including the contract for difference and the related instruments, and to provide clear and bankable offtake signals that underpins investment decision, and to deepen technical and financial partnership that enable project implementation on the ground. The time for feasibility is passing and the time for implementation has arrived, and therefore let us really use this business forum as a catalyst for structured follow-up engagements. Namibia is ready to be a reliable, large-scale, and competitive supplier of green hydrogen and its derivatives. It is in this spirit, allow me also to extend invitation to all the delegates to join us later this year at the African Green Industry Summit that is going to take place at our coastal town of Swakopmund from the 9th to the 10th of September. So we invite Europe to continue to partner with us, not only in ambition, but also in action. I thank you.